Good morning, everyone. I, Bhushan Pawar, welcome you all on behalf of Shan Angar Kachinjin College, Mumbai, India. We at SAKEC Research Cell would take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you present here today for this hybrid webinar series, Innovative and Emerging Technology in the Field of Research, in a collaboration with all our partners. Today, I am addressing you to the webinar on student-centric design, thinking for educational problem solving. The speaker for the webinar is Dr. Shitanshu Mishra. Our speaker, Dr. Shitanshu Mishra, is a ED Tech and Learning Science researcher and is working currently as a postdoc at the Computer Science Department at Vanderbilt University. He studied computer science at the bachelor's and master's level before moving to the educational technology. He received his PhD in educational technology from Indian IIT Bombay. He is interested in unfolding learner complex thinking process during decision making and problem solving tasks via a combination of quantitative and qualitative and quantitative research methods. He is also interested in synergetic learning of STEM, CS, and thinking skills. So, before handing to our speaker, I would like to make a note to all my attendees that if you have any queries or if you want to ask any question to our speaker throughout the session, you can ask via question answer chat box. Most frequently asked question will be answered at the end of the talk. So I request our speaker to share the content with all the attendees and start the session. Hello, hello, sir.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I hope my screen is visible. Hello, hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
fine.
sir. Yes.
Am I good with my screen share and audio?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine, good. So,
Sorry, you
good
can
morning.
minimize that window, sir. That black.
Uh, uh,
Minimize. Hello, sir.
do anyone have any number? The real world problems. But my domain is specialization is education. I'm an education technologist, so I'll use most of the examples from education. But because there are a lot of people attendees today from different varieties of domains, so maybe I'll try to keep it as neutral as possible. So let's start with uh, one principle that we believe in is that creativity is a skill that can be systematically developed. And the design thinking instructors, they believe that design thinking can be used to foster creativity skills in individuals. So it's not just that creativity, a person is born creative, or those who have not demonstrated creativity in their childhood cannot be creative in their adulthood. So creativity can be learned. And in today's talk, we'll see that how creativity can be learned, acquired using design thinking framework. So let's talk about design thinking framework. So the content of this webinar is around design thinking. And so I'll talk about what of design thinking and how of design thinking. And examples would be primarily from educational domain, but I'll talk more about what of design thinking than how of design thinking, uh, given the limitations of the session. Okay. So here are the three things that I can promise in next 40 minutes of my talk. So by the end of this webinar, you would be able to, number one, list the steps of design thinking for creative problem solving. Number two, understand the importance of each steps. And number three, recognize what you should learn about design thinking. So keep an eye on this, that what all are needed to make you a good design thinker. And because in these 40 minutes of uh, in this 40 minutes of webinar, we have just limited opportunity to have a glimpse of different things. So it's very important to make aware that these are the things that you should go ahead with and do some homework later on, such that you develop as a good design thinker. Okay. So let's start this with an activity. So you must have got one link. If you haven't, then just copy this link in your browser. And what you have to do there is write a single sentence, respond in a single sentence, and suggest how would you go about solving problems of online learning. Just write one answer, one single answer, less than 20 words. Go to this link, padlet.com/Shitanshu underscore editech. This is one. Just go to this link and type in your answers. So this is Shitanshu underscore edit padlet.com Shitanshu editech activity one.
Yes, sir. Posted in question answer chart.
Okay, so we have no, don't post. Okay, so just go to that question answer chat and you'll see this window. And here you have to use this add button, and click on this add button. You will get something, write a sentence here and exit. Okay. So just open padlet.com/Shitanshu underscore editech slash activity. So it is padlet.com//Shitanshu SHITANSHU underscore edtex/activity one. So there's no right or wrong answer. Just post one answer to this question that in a single sentence suggest how would you go about solving problems of online learning. So you just have to click plus button here at the right bottom of the browser and type in your answers. So maybe we can have 1 more minute to have at least few of our audiences participate. Okay, so I think we have, excluding my inputs, we have now 1, 2, 3, 5 responses, and let's look at the responses. First response was, I will update attendance using Excel sheet. Someone else responded, we can have timely schedule. I will make lectures interactive, put extra money on teachers creating the contents. Using Excel sheet, I'll take attendance. So, and there's one more, lectures. Okay, so these are the different responses. I'll make lectures short. Okay, using Google Classroom. Okay, so there are a lot of solutions, and you can, all of you can go ahead and keep responding to these to this question. Now I'm switching back to the session. So what we observed in our responses, we observed that there are a lot of solutions that we are directly coming up with. And what activity I gave you was to just write a single sentence about how would you go about solving problems. I was not asking you about the solutions. I was asking you about how would you go about solving. So what you would do first, maybe, to solve the problem. So just keep an eye on this point, that most of us, we tend to go ahead and ideate the solutions instead of doing something else. And what is that something else? Let's see. So before that, we'll see there are two popular types of problem solving that we hear often, right? One is creative problem solving, other is innovative problem solving. What are the differences? What is the difference between these two? So in innovative problem solving, we don't already know what the problem is. The problem, I mean, sorry, in innovative problem solving, we already know what the problem is. The problem is clearly defined, and we have to go ahead with identifying the ideas, the solutions to how to solve that already defined problems. Whereas in creative problem solving, it's not the case. In creative problem solving, we have to figure out, we have to explore, we have to identify what's the problem, what is the problem that needs to be solved, and then we have to define the problem properly. And after we have a crisp, specific definition of the problem, then only we can go ahead and have opportunity to solve the problem. So without problem, we don't have solutions. Okay, so what we saw in our Padlet post, in the solutions that you all posted, was that most of us tempted to directly post some solution, some ideas. And this is the tendency of most of us, right? So even if we are a teacher, if we are maybe entrepreneurs, or we are businessmen, most of us have this tendency to start thinking of the ideas, the solutions, before thinking of the problems. So let's look at a story. This story is about a company, PNG. You all know PNG company, and it manufactures a lot of household items, for example, toothbrushes, toothpaste, soaps, etc. And so you all know P&G, right? So in year 2000, uh, P&G, it was manufacturing toothbrushes. So specifically for toothbrushes that they manufactured for kids, it had very low sale. So they were really upset about this. All other products they were having good sales, but toothbrushes had approximately 20% of the market sale. So the company tried many ideas, but none of them worked. They tried to place Superman stickers on the handles of the brushes. They tried to cast some cartoons at the bottom of the brushes. They did a lot of things, but none of them worked significantly and increased their sales significantly. And after getting tired of all those things, they finally decided to figure out what do the kids do with toothbrushes that may give an idea about why the sale is low. So to recognize that why the sale is low, what they did, they randomly invited many kids for a summer camp. In the summer camp, they had created a washroom of wash basins full of wash basins where kids can brush their tooth, and they can collect such that they can collect video data of kids brushing their tooth. So they collected a lot of videos, and then they started analyzing. And after analysis, they found there were three most frequent observations. First observation was that toothbrushes, they slip off from kids' hands. Number two, kids used to punch their mouth while brushing. And number three, brushes had hard bristles that often hurt kids. So these were the three frequent observations, and they also observed that these were the three frequent reasons why kids, after starting brushing their tooth, they just give off their brushes, they keep off their brushes and stop the process. And so what it led to the fact that toothbrushes were consumed less, and therefore more brushes were not bought much, right? So that was the reason of low sale. So what they did, they went ahead with solving these three identified problems. So how did they solve these three problems? So the problem number one, toothbrushes slipping off, what they did is they used bulkier handle, and they put a rubber grip around that handle such that it does not get it does not slips off from the student's hand, from the children's hands. The second problem was kids punching their mouth. What they did is they created a roundish and narrower neck. So why roundish and narrower? Because they cannot train individual kids to not to hold the brushes from its neck. So in order to make it very intuitive for the kids, what they did, they created the neck as roundish and narrower, such that they actually resemble like a neck. And all of us, even in our childhood, we know that we should not hold anything with its neck, right? So then kids avoided punching their mouth because they stopped holding the brush from its neck. And the third problem was straightforward. They started using soft bristle material, and then it paid off. So applying these three solutions, their sale increased from 20% to 80% of the market, right? And this is amazing, right? So what they were doing in the start, they were solving the problem that market sale is less. What they did in the end that worked. In the end, they, instead of solving the problem that market sale is less, they started solving a specific problem that they identified based on observing their users, their customers, the kids. How do they go about using their products, and what they do, why the products is not used much, so on and so forth, right? So instead of directly jumping to ideation, what we should do is focus on identifying and defining the problem, and that's the crux of crux of this design thinking. Number one, user is the center. Number two, identify the problem properly and define it properly, such that we can use that defined problem to think about the exact idea, the solution that we should think about. So let's look into the design thinking framework. So I have abstracted, there are several steps in design thinking framework, but we can classify those steps into three parts. Number one is identifying the problem. Number two is ideating about the solution. Number three is evaluating whether the solution is working, and it's working for the objective that we want it to work for, right? So there are three steps: problem identification, solution ideation, and the third is evaluation. So we start with problem identification, then switch to ideation, then switch to evaluation. And we can move from evaluation to ideation. This means that after evaluation, we may know that we have to modify our idea. Or after evaluation, we can also come to a conclusion that no, it's not just idea that we may need to identify, modify, but it's also the problem that we may have to identify, because evaluation will involve more of our users to take part in using our product, and identifying the behaviors of those users may inform us further that no, this problem definition needs to be further broken down and redefined, and maybe we have to solve some even more granular problem than what we are solving right now. So problem definition, solution ideation, and evaluation, and it can loop back. So let's see what are inside problem definition, solution ideation, and evaluation processes. So within problem definition, what we have to do is first we have to empathize with our users. Empathizing means know what is going on inside my user's mind, right? I'm empathizing with you. I'm trying to know how you are thinking, what you are thinking, right? So it's not just about thinking, how you behave, how you use my product, and product could be for a teacher, the product could be the content of the lecture, right? So how my user is, how the user thinks about the product, how it performs with the products, what she does with the product, etc. This is known as empathizing. Defining means once you know that what is what does my user do in a given scenario, then we can see that in this given scenario, this is the exact problem definition that I should solve. This is the exact challenge that we are facing, and it should be solved. In the ideation phase, we have to come up with idea. Now I'll talk about later that what are the different techniques, what we should take care of when we are ideating about a solution. In the evaluation phase, we have to obviously test, evaluate, but what we should evaluate. So given we have idea, we have to translate this idea into some testable artifact. Testable artifact means we have to create some prototype, something that we can give to our test users to use it, and then our test users can give feedback about, or we can observe our test users while they are using our prototype. So we have to create a prototype, and then we need to give that prototype to our users, and then again observe them, ask them for feedback, and that will constitute how we are doing test. So empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and testing. These are the 5 steps prescribed by design thinking framework. So let's go through all of these 5 steps one by one. So empathize, the objective of this process, of this step, is to collect the customer journey map, knowing the experiences, behaviors of the customers in the present scenario. So the present scenario could be anything. It's like for a teacher, it could be a classroom. For a teacher who is working online, it could be on an online class. For example, I'm right now giving a talk. So after this, if I come to know that how you are feeling about this whole lecture, then it will help me further understanding you and understanding my product, what I'm delivering right now. whether it is working or not, what is working, what is not working, what are the challenges, what modification should I make later on, so on and so forth. So I need to know who you are as my customer, as my user, and then I need to know a customer journey map where you start from and you keep going in this, keep working in this scenario, and then what all you do, what impacts you, how you feel, what you do, what you say, etc. So all these things will help me in creating a customer journey map. So how you create it? So there are several methods to dig deeper into our customers, our users mind and users behaviors. So most popular set of methodology is qualitative methodology, and that involves interviews, observing our users, uh, so on and so forth. If my user is using some of my software products, I can what I can do is I can record screens, and then I later on look at those screen recording videos to figure out that how my user is using my product, they are going through my software, etc. Okay, so next, after empathizing, after knowing my user, after knowing how my user behaves in the scenario which for which I'm solving problems about, right? So after I know my user, I have to go ahead and define my problem that I should solve. So defining a problem requires analysis of the collected data and then creating a customer journey map. So I'll show the customer journey map in the next slide. But for education audiences, for education domain audiences, defining the problem and empathizing with the users, it implies that we should know the state of learning teaching in the given context. Our users are students. So let's see how does a customer journey map look like. So what it says that when we analyze the collected data, we have to identify, we have to dig deeper into, we have to put focus on what our users are saying, that this is how what I do, what this is, this is what I do in the given scenario. You have a PNG test case. Uh, they would have asked those kids that what were you doing in the in front of wash basins when you were brushing. Why did you throw your clients, my users say? Then we have to figure out what they actually do. So what they say might differ from what they do, and what they do, it might also differ from what they think, and what they think, say, or do, it may also differ from what they feel. So they may say that they are feeling good, their actions may show something else, their thoughts may be something else, but their feeling, maybe they are feeling bored, right? Or they're feeling sad, they're feeling uninterested, or they are feeling interested, joyful. It could be anything. So we have to dig deeper into the data collected and segregate these four informations: what they say, what they do, what they think, and what they feel. So once we have these four things separately, then we can make an estimate. We can uh, we can claim something about what our users are doing, and these four informations together will tell us that who are our users actually, and then what the problems they are facing, and what definition I should give to my problem, right? So this was problem identification and defining. So empathize and define phase. Once you have defined a problem, we move to the next step, ideate. Okay, so one example, coming back to the definition, one example of how should our final definition look like is that So once you analyze all these four things and come up with a definition, the definition should look something like this. The user ABC needs a way to do something because I observed something else. So I'm just giving an example from education. So the user, my first year CS students, need a way to engage more with online exercises because we observed in the data that they spend less time on exercises, right? So this could be one example of the problem that I need to solve further, right? So once you have empathized, defined, now we have to go ahead and see how to ideate, right? So previously, normally what we all do is directly jump to the ideate phase. Now let's look into how to ideate. So the main challenge of ideation process is that we individuals have limited perspectives. So you must have experienced that if you discuss some problem, some solution with your friends, then you will get a richer solution as compared to you thinking alone. So you may utilize all your faculties to come up with solutions, but the moment even a kid supports you, you may get an additional perspective and that can enrich your idea. So the main challenge of ideation is that individually we have limited perspectives. So what's the solution? The straightforward solution is to team up with people around you. That's one thing. But I was talking about thinking processes. So what one individual can do? Obviously, you have to team up with people around you. But in addition to that, we also need to learn how to expand our perspectives. So how to do that? Let's look into the next slide. So given a problem definition, if I ask you to come up with ideas, you can start thinking about ideas, posting your ideas online, wherever I ask to do. But that's the straightforward technique. So proposing solution ideas without any other constraint, any other constraint with that I give is okay. That's a normal thing. Now, suppose if I ask you to do this, assuming that you are a child. So you don't have to think as an adult, but you have to think as if you are a child. So the moment I put constraint on my brain like this, on my thought process like this, then I'll start thinking about completely different set of ideas. So it has opened up one gate of one perspective, gateway to one perspective. Now let's open more gates to more perspectives. Okay, suppose I give you this constraint. Think about the idea as if you have superpower. You are a Superman or some superhero. So maybe you can fly, maybe you can burn things using your eyes. You can transfer temperature from one place to another. You may have different superpowers. So now assume that you are not the normal you, but you are a Superman or you are some superhero. Now how will you solve the problems? The answers to the questions, the solutions that you are going to propose right after that, after this assumption, will be completely different set of ideas than what you propose normally or what you propose as a child. So this will give you another set of perspectives. Now one more constraint, another constraint. Suppose you have enormous resources. For example, you have enormous money. You have so many people to work for you. Now how will you give solutions to the same problem? This will again give open up another set of solution ideas. It will open another type of perspective. Then another perspective could be to give a constraint that you are assuming that you have no extra resources. You have zero resources maybe. Now with zero resources, for example, just having 1,000 rupees in your hand and only you working for your idea for solving the problem, how will you solve the problems? So these are the different constraints that we can put on our thought processes, on our ideation processes, in order to come up with different perspectives. And once we have different perspectives, suppose I ask you to come up with 5 ideas in normal without any constraint, 5 ideas as a child, 5 ideas as a superhero, 5 ideas as a super enormous resourceful person, and maybe and the 5 ideas with a person who does not have any resources. Then you'll have total 5 into 5, 25 ideas with varying perspectives, and that is really rich. Now if you combine these different perspectives with teaming up with people around you, then suppose if you are a two-person and both of them put these constraints, you will have 25 into 2, 50 ideas for the same problem. Now what you need to do is you have to integrate those ideas together the way possible in the real world, and then you will see that you will have a far better, maybe cheaper ideas, cheaper solution for the same problem. So one of the example that we can cite as Indians is that of is the mission Mars, right? So mission Mars was really a cheaper mission, very cheap mission. But what constraint we put on our thought processes was that we will not get much funding for our project. Okay, so our Chandrayaan project, right? So we will not get much funding and still we have to solve problems. So it's not that we cannot get ideas when we are putting some constraint on our ideation thought processes. We will get a lot of ideas. The only thing is that we have to learn is that we need to deliberately put constraints and put our mind in different perspectives. In addition to this, we also have to team up with people around us, and then finally come talk together and try to integrate, borrow ideas from all the ideas that we generated individually and as a team. So this is overall ideation process and the thinking processes needed for ideation. So for education folks, uh, so ideation will mean that proposing some educational technology solution that can solve some teaching learning defined problems. So next step is prototyping. Prototyping requires us to create prototype of our idea for user feedback. So this prototype need not to be the real product. So for example, if we are ideating about a software product, maybe some mobile application. So we may have paper prototype, and then we can ask our user to look at this paper prototype. If you click this button, then on the next page this will happen. If you click that button, something else will happen, and so on and so forth. We can create paper prototype and emulate all the possible user and system interaction using paper. So we don't need to develop the real product. We don't maybe always need to develop the models of our product. So prototyping is a different. It may be far cheaper than the actual product development or the model development. So what we have to do once we have idea, then we have to implement that idea as a prototype and give that prototype to our users for the next step of testing. So the last step test is to make users to interact with the prototype and get their feedback. And it's not just getting their feedback, as I have discussed before, it's also about observing them, how they are using our prototype. And maybe we can make our own inferences while observing that these are the things users are doing or not doing as expected. And in addition to that, their feedback will obviously tell us a lot about what is working and what is not working in our prototype. And then we can decide on whether to change something in our prototype, or whether to change something in our idea, or maybe whether we have to change something in our problem definition itself or the problem itself. All right. So one of the important thing about testing is to know that what should I test for? What should I evaluate? So we can borrow one idea from educational technology literature, which is a TEL matrix. TEL matrix tells us that what are the four important things about an educational product that needs to be evaluated, tested for. So these four are effectiveness, efficiency, attractiveness, and accessibility. Effectiveness means that whether my product is doing what it is supposed to do, what I have made it for. For example, I have made an online lecture to teach some concept of mathematics, for example, finding out square root, right? So whether my students, after watching the whole video lecture, whether are they able to perform the square rooting process properly or not, right? So whether the my product is effective or ineffective, we have to test this for whether my product is performing the things that I am expecting it to perform or not. That's effectiveness. Okay. Efficiency, on the other hand, means that how much users can I serve to? Is my product scalable? Am I quick enough to deliver same learning content? Am I able quick enough to deliver same efficiency of learning, same effectiveness of learning in a shorter time as compared to some previous solution? So that's efficiency. Suppose I can teach you quickly the same design thinking framework than someone else with the same effectiveness. That means I'm more efficient. If not, I'm less efficient than the other person. So that's efficiency. It includes scalability. It includes the speed, the time taken. It includes the resource taken consumed by our product, so on and so forth. That's efficiency, right? So suppose you have built a calculator software. If it produces wrong calculations, we mean that it has bad effectiveness, right? If its accuracy is bad, so it is not effective enough. If it produces correct calculations, but it's taking too much time, it's less efficient, right? Now coming to attractiveness. Attractiveness defines and determines that whether my product is going to be used or not used. So design thinking is an old framework, right? Now I am teaching you design thinking framework right now. If it is not attractive enough, you would feel bored and will go to some other YouTube video and learn design thinking framework from there, right? So attractiveness determines that how will my user feel when he or she is using my product. So attractiveness will determine that. And the last metric is accessibility. So if I am giving an online lecture and in a remote village of India, if no one is there to listen to that lecture, I mean, there's no internet, for example. So accessibility is not, right? So if what is the accessibility of a product? So even if we have internet, suppose my video lecture or my software consumes a lot of computer resources, and in current scenario in India, for example, no one has computer processor more than, for example, more than i7 processor, and my software requires that my user should have an more advanced processor than i7. That also means that my software will not be accessible for that person, right? So we have to create effectiveness, efficient, attractive, and more accessible. So accessibility is really a key in India. In India, we have to think about how much digital penetration is there. So in this time of COVID-19, we see that a lot of schools have switched to online teaching, but we also hear the stories about those parents who do not have mobile phones or smartphones or internet on their smartphones, right? So that's a clear-cut accessibility problem. So we have to evaluate our product, specifically our education product, on these four criteria: effectiveness, efficiency, attractiveness, and accessibility. So these are the four things that we should test. Now coming back to the summary, uh, number one, we should know who our user is. It's not just knowing that my user is my student. It's also about what are the different constraints with my users, how my user starts using my product, how he ends using my product, what's his complete user journey map, right? So knowing my user is an important thing. Other important thing is identifying the problem. It is crucial. We should not directly jump on ideating the solutions. Number three takeaway is that we have to train our mind to to acquire different perspectives, to deliberately put ourselves in different conditions, in different constraints that can give us diversity of our own thought processes, right? And the fourth takeaway is that we should know what we are evaluating in a product. So it's not just so so I'm not telling you that you should go ahead and evaluate for all those four factors: effectiveness, efficiency. Maybe you are just testing for effectiveness, but you should know that you are testing for effectiveness, right? And that will help you in designing your test and deciding what data to collect to understand that effectiveness properly. Okay, so these are the four important takeaways and summaries from this talk. So there's one homework. Homework is to explore different ways to perform empathize process, ideation process, evaluation process. Okay, so empathize process will require us to learn different methodologies, methods of data collection. For example, how to conduct interviews, how to observe, what to observe, right? All these things, there's a huge literature to help you with understanding what are different data that I should collect to understand our users, to understand how our users behave in a given scenario. We also have to explore different ways to perform ideation process. So one way I have told you to put yourself in different perspective. Another way I told you to team up with people. Now how to go about further ideation. You need to explore this further. So these are the homework that we should know that we have to do, right? Other thing is evaluation. This also requires us to understand what are the different data collections that we should do, how to analyze those data, how to evaluate, what to evaluate, what are the test threats that we may face. So for example, we are trying to test that whether my video lecture is able to make students learn XYZ, but I'm testing something else. I'm testing whether my student is uh, able to learn ABC. So if I'm testing something else, but teaching something else, giving product about something else, that's clearly an invalid test, right? So what are the validity threats to our test? What are the different ways of data collection for testing, for evaluation? All these things we need to explore further. Now, this is one video that you all can open. I don't know if I can share my audio with even you all computer audio. But this is one video that demonstrates how uh, some of the people have solved a problem. So this was the problem that students in the midday meal in the primary schools, in the midday meals in Indian villages, they were not washing their hands before eating. So that led to diarrhea, right? So we wanted to cultivate, I mean, they wanted to cultivate a habit of washing the hands before eating. So this was one of the example that they used design thinking for and came up with a solution. So maybe I'll leave this link for you. to note it down somewhere and watch the video. So you can just copy this video ID, HAZ capital U. This small and lower cases are important here. So I'll put this link later on, I'll share. Maybe admins can put this link on the chat while they are.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay. So maybe you can take a screenshot and put this link on the chat. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. So I really feel privileged to organize this content for you, and maybe I would be able to respond to your queries on my mails further. And if you want to know more about these topics, we can schedule another session sometime after a few days, maybe in some other platforms, maybe, we don't know. But yeah, you are all free to email me with your whatever queries you have. Okay, thank you so much. And I'll again put back this link visible to you all. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for this is one a very wonderful session, sir. We have a few questions asked
Mhm.
by the participant. Sir, the first question is like, is there any brainstorming tools available for students to boost the creativity?
Brainstorming tools. Okay.
Uh,
So when it comes to brainstorming tools, so there's no AI software that will help you in coming up with the ideas. But yes, you can support your thought thinking processes. So one of the concept in cognitive science is offloading your thoughts. So for example, when you solve a maths problem, what you do? You calculate something, write that output of that calculation on a paper, and then switch to calculating something else, and then again go back and refer to that solution. So there are tools that can help you in putting your thoughts outside, offload your thoughts from your brain, from your mind, and that will help you in enhancing your thought process further. So one of the tool could be concept mapping tools, so that you can install there are CMAP tools, CMAP map tools. You can Google it, and you can install it and start creating concept maps, and that will help you in offloading your thoughts and maybe reorganizing your thoughts also. Other tools that typically used by many thinkers or problem solvers, you must have seen in movies or in some offices that there is a wall where there are a lot of sticky notes, and those sticky notes are interrelated, connected with each other using threads. So all these uh, offloading tools where that can help you in noting down your thoughts, putting it outside, and then connecting them together, and then also discussing them with your peers, right? So these you can also invent on your own. But the computer based tools, one of the good tools is CMAP tools, and the hardware, the physical tool could be sticky notes. Yes, that would be useful. Yeah, and you can keep exploring it further. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, next question is like, how to use design thinking in classroom?
Design thinking in classroom. Yeah, so if it is a teacher who is asking this question, then
Yes,
then
sir. That's what means. Sometimes means during the lecture session, students come up with the immediate ideas. So how to mean design, think that use that thinking in the teaching learning process.
also in the teaching learning process, design thinking is about coming up with a product design, right? Coming up with a solution. But before solution, a teacher in a classroom, so you must have seen that a teacher who has 25 years of experience, a long experiences, they know very small nuances of how students behave in a classroom, right? So what will a new teacher do? Maybe who is a 1 year experience or 5 year experience? How will that teacher would be able to produce same output, understand the students in this with the same efficiency as the 25 years old teachers? So what we have to do, we have to compress those 25 years experiences into some smaller time. So this design thinking framework will help you in doing that. So that teacher who is 25 years experience, they have observed students unintentionally, but 25 years are too long time that they will obviously one day or the other day they will observe the nuances. But I think and so
Sir, your voice is fluttering.
like if you teach in one semester, each of what they and hello.
Ha, sir. Now it's audible now, sir.
Okay.
Sir, next.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Next question. Thanks.
Continue, sir.
Okay, so I was talking about the teacher. So what they should do is they should explicitly compress those 25 years of experiences. So in 25 years of experiences, the experienced teachers get opportunities, unlimited opportunities to identify the nuances about students' problems unintentionally. What new teachers need to do, they have to do the same process intentionally. You have to apply the design thinking framework, empathize with your users, that is the students, and try to in 1 week try to identify what worked, what didn't work, what are the problems. Keep hypothesizing about this could be a problem. Create a prototype of your idea, apply it next week, see if it works or not, and then again keep iterating this for further. So this exercise, it may not work initially, but it will keep your brain trained such that it's like eventually you will come up with that thinking skill of doing better design thinking, better designing for teaching learning problems.
Thank you, sir. Sir, next question is like, how do we make sure all the students following with the selected teaching strategy?
Pardon?
How do we make sure all
Mhm.
students are following the selected teaching strategy?
Mhm.
Again, from the question
Okay,
from the teacher.
that's a good question, and teachers know that not all strategies would work for all students, right? So what we need to do is like identify our objectives first. That this is what I want from all of my students, and then decide that anchor to this objective, what strategy should I do? So many of you must be aware of think, pair, share exercise. So if my objective is predefined objective is I want my students to be engaged in the classroom. Engaged means I want my students to interact with the content and think about the content in the classroom. I may use one strategy known as think, pair, share, where I'll ask my student to think about the answer to a question first, and then in the next step they will have. I'll ask them to pair with their peers sitting beside them, and then talk about the another answer to another question. So that will ensure that even if a student one student is is interested in something, other student is interested in something else, but if I ask them to talk to each other, come up with a common solution in a group of two, they they will do it irrespective of whether they are interested in something or something else, right? So independent of their diversity, they will interact with the content at some level, right? So we can ensure that our strategy involves some activities that will foster some amount of thought processes. Maybe some group of students will think more, maybe some will think less. So it, but we'll ensure that at least some thinking has gone for all the groups. That's the minimum that we can expect. So first of all, understand what minimal expectation I should have out of my strategies, whether my strategies are fulfilling those expectations or not, and then keep updating the strategy slowly to include others, right? So
Uh,
yeah, that could be, yeah, that's the one answer. Uh, but yeah, you have to engineer strategies. Don't expect that someone came to you, taught you one strategy, and that should work. No, that may not work because your students are different. Your pool is different than someone else's pool, right? So you have to engineer, keep doing, keep doing those that inquiry cycle going when you are teaching. Keep inquiring whether my strategy is working or not working, working or not working. What is the problem? What is not the problem? And maybe you may choose different solutions. For example, you may keep rotating the pairs of students, keep grouping students in different, keep putting one student in different groups, and maybe some group will click and some will not click, right? Maybe some other day something will click to one student and something will not click. So you have to keep experimenting, but it's not just about keep experimenting randomly. Experimentation anyone can do, right? But you have to deliberately experiment, log each and everything properly. I mean, keep a diary of your research, what works, what didn't work for what students, and keep this log with you, and formally analyze those logs, and that will actually give you a better feedback on how to go about solving teaching learning problem inside a classroom, or how to make sure that what kind of modifications of a given strategy that I started with will work in future.
Thank you, sir. Sir, last question.
Yeah.
How to boost professional development attitude in students?
what is what do you mean by professional development attitude first?
So, like, means participant like to know, like, in when they join the corporate companies, so
Mhm.
how to maintain that professionalism, means keeping the, like, keep the company documents very much secure with them, not to, so like that professional development attitude in students.
Yeah. So if you are talking about students when they haven't graduated, that's another scenario. If you're talking about the employees that have already entered the company or an organization, that's the other scenario. So from my educational technology engineering experience, I would use behavioral reinforcement, where I'm going to put some rewards and rewards, negative rewards or positive rewards. And sometimes I may also use punishments, which I don't recommend. But yeah, negative and positive rewards I will put, which can reinforce or mitigate the desired and undesired behaviors respectively. That could be something that most of us do this. Uh, but we have to, before everything else, we have to define that what do we mean by professional attitude? What do we expect and what we don't expect? And we have to understand our users. It's like our employees. If we are a trainer, and if I'm a trainer in a company and my employee uh, is my student, then we have to understand that I have to understand my student. I don't have to just think that okay, this person is uh, he is not fit, or he's not fit or fit for the company, right? So I like this question because the attitude of the questioner is that he thinks that it is his responsibility to develop that professional attitude in the person. So this perspective is good. So if this perspective comes from a teacher's perspective, the teachers has responsibility about the student. Teacher never says that this student is useless. It's teacher's responsibility to make that person useful. Okay, that's one thing. That's why I like the question. So we have to understand that who are our users, who are our students, what context they are coming from, where they are coming from, economically weaker section, which state they are coming from, which society they are coming from, what would be their priorities, what can make them happy, what can encourage them, what can motivate them, what can mitigate them, what can, maybe bad thing is what can threaten them, right? So all these things, if we understand about our users, our students properly, then we'll be in a better situation to understand, to think about that, okay, as a human resource manager, I should do XYZ activities with my this employee, I should do ABC activities with my other employee. But I would make sure that these ABC and XYZ, both these groups of employees, they reach a definite desired state. And maybe in many cases, we may not want all of them to reach a common state. Maybe we just want them to reach some state according to their given background. And in that state, they will be better performers. So it all needs to be understood that who all are users, what we want out of them.
Thank you very much, sir. But I think a last question is there. Can I ask you, sir?
Yeah.
Sir, question is like Indian education system mostly rely on memorizing and answering for marks. How do we
Mhm.
make them learn concept and make them learning centric and not exam centric?
Yeah. So the so the answer can come from two levels. One from policy level, which will be governed by a university, the concerned university. So if you see IIT's system, for example, in Mumbai, IIT Bombay's system, they are not mark centric. They are more like learning centric, right? So they don't. So if you see, look at their assessments. Many of them do open book assessment. So students are free to open their books to come up with the answers to the exam questions. But the questions would be like the questions would be such which will require them to apply the knowledge. So it will not be sufficient for the students to just look at the book and copy something from the book into the answer sheet. They have to look into the book and then understand them, analyze the content, and then put their inferences and some calculations of their book content in the answer sheet. So this shows that IIT Bombay's and other IITs also do this. Their curriculum, their policy is learning centric. Um, but on other hand, if you look at several other colleges and other universities, they are highly, in order to maintain a sustainable processes of, it's like centralized examination, centralized assessments, they have to uh, rely on some standard common assessment formats. So that may make their question papers having more of remembering questions, recalling questions, or just understand level defining questions. And they will have less application or synthesis questions, right? So it has to be number one dealt from the policy point of view. Uh, Number two, from teachers level, what we can do is uh, for the same for the same thing that we are teaching, for the same curriculum, same syllabus, we can use more constructivist strategies. For example, if you are asking your students to create a project based on the topics that you are learning in the classroom, okay, that project will give them more exposure to the content. It will develop interest in the content more than you just lecturing in the classroom. So maybe you can use flipped classroom strategy. In flipped classroom strategy, what you do is you you give reading and video contents to the students that they watch and read at their home, but in the classroom you don't lecture. You just work with them on some problem. You give them some projects, help them in creating those projects in the classroom itself, and then keep helping each groups of the projects uh, in the classroom. So that will make the classroom more interesting, more happening. So in flipped classroom, what they do is you normally give assignments, problem solving things in the homework, and you lecture in the classroom. You can flip it. You can ask them to watch lectures at your home, and when you come to the class, I'll be with you to solve problems. I'll be with you to create projects. I'll be with you to make you collaborate with your peers and come up with ideas. All right. So that will increase the interest and motivation. So these are the two levels. One from policy level, other answer is from teachers level. So in to summarize this answer, I would say uh, that to ensure learner and learning centric education, we have to be aware of that education is not about making our students to get scores. Okay, it is, and scores about learning. It's not just about scores about learning. Education also has components of emotions, components of affects, joy, feelings, right? Joy, anger, sadness, all those things are emotional aspects. So education also has emotional aspects. Students have emotional aspects. In addition to the learning aspect, students also have behavioral aspects. some some of them pay attention, some of them don't pay attention. So as a teacher, as an educator, we have to take care of all these things together. Number one is cognitive aspect, which is learning. Number two is emotional aspect, and number three is behavior aspect. So whether my student is learning what I want to learn, whether they are happy to learn it, interested in learning it, motivated with our content and the activities or not. Number three, whether they are paying attention, how to make sure they pay attention, how to make sure that they attend our classes, physical classes or online classes. These are behavior things. So as a teacher, we have to think about solving all these three aspects, and this will make a better learner centric, learning centric. So learning cannot happen without learner, and learner has all these three aspects. You have to deal with these three aspects. Normally teachers don't do this, but we have to think about these three things together. So you must have seen many teachers, they are so much motivating that even if they don't lecture properly, their students are performing better. Okay, and some of the teachers are so much good at the content that even if they are frustrating to listen to, still their students are performing better. So what will happen if a teacher takes care of all these three aspects together? The output will be fantastic. But we have to think about these three things together. That's my answer.
Thank you very much, sir, for patiently answering all the questions, answers.
Thank you.
With this, we present you the certificate.
Oh
Please
my
accept
goodness.
as a token of appreciation from SAKEC Research. Sir, thank you for joining with us, for giving such a wonderful session on education and technology, sir. Sir,
I'm
thank
pleased.
you very
Thank
much.